This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, the Citizen-Net reporter, with Jim Benerofe, the Dean of Journalism in White Plains, USA. And Jim has the headlines.
And now, here are the headlines for the week of August 2nd, 2019. Board of Elections Commissioners report on progress of early voting. It begins Saturday, October 26th. Second Democratic debate grips the nation with mixed messages. Westchester County Executive introduces the Dragonator at Playland, says attendance is ahead of 2017 and 2018 pace as of mid-July. White Plains Common Council is reported to be ready to appoint a new city court judge. New York Presbyterian Hospital ranked #1 hospital in New York and #5 in the nation by U.S. News and World Report. Westchester County Police target speeding on Westchester highways all next week. The White Plains beat reporter for decades, Richard Leibson, dies after 40 years covering the city.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome to White Plains Week. And let's go to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time for August the 2nd, 2019. And you are seeing video footage of a meeting that was held in the Westchester County Budget and Appropriations Committee, shown here. This is the look at the committee, waiting to hear from the commissioners of the Board of Elections. Could we see the committee? There we are. And they sat and asked Mr. Lafayette, Reginald Lafayette, and Doug Colty, the co-commissioners of the Board of Elections, on the progress. And right now, here is Catherine Borgia asking that question. How it's going.
Received a bond request yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because, as you know, the clock is ticking. You know, you're going to have to be ready to go in 2 months. And we know how long every step takes, and there are a lot of steps, as you pointed out. How are we going to get this done by mid-October?
Walking over here.
Let me go through the, explain what we need, what we're prepared to do, and then give you the estimate. Well, Commissioner Lafayette and I decided that we will only use the electronic poll book for early voting. The general election is going to be conducted the same way we did last year. We would like to come back after Election Day and make the proposal to buy all the equipment that we're going to need, fully implement electronic poll books into all elections. Bless you. For next year. You know, in presidential, primary, we're not sure about the March elections yet, but all primaries and November election. But right now, for early voting, we want to use the electronic poll book, which will allow any voter in the county to vote at any one of the 16 sites. It would also allow us to keep track of who's voting in order to ensure that no one votes twice and no one that votes early can vote on election day, because the data will be available to us to pull everyone out of the books that will be in the polling sites, the paper books on election day. But in order to use the electronic poll book, we're going to need the new Plan B machine for use in early voting, because the old Plan B machines, the memory and then the hardware in them cannot reasonably accommodate the election data for every election, every ballot face in the county. It would take upwards of 18 hours to boot up the machine. So Commissioner Lafayette and I agree that we're going to need 30 of them right now in order to do early voting. So we'll need 30 new Plan B machines.
And how many
About 50 poll books, electronic poll books. And the number we've come up with, based on all hardware, software, training from those companies to our inspectors and our BOE employees, we're in the $650,000 range. And that's what we need just for the hardware and basic training to BOE employees to conduct early voting.
So when do you plan to send over the request for the authorization?
We're ready to send that as soon as the county attorney and the board can
get together.
and put it together.
And this is what is going to be interesting, because as of yesterday afternoon, Jim, Reginald Lafayette explained to me that they are very close to getting it over to the legislature as of late Thursday afternoon. So maybe they will get it over by this morning. And then Benjamin Boykin confirmed, he is the chairman of the Board of Legislators, that he expected that then they would send it out to the Public Works Committee at the county and the Budget Appropriations Committee, which Mr. Coldy was speaking for in that video clip. And then they would review it, do their due diligence, as they always say, and they expected to vote on it by September the 16th. However, I spoke with Mr. Lafayette too yesterday afternoon, and Mr. Lafayette says that they have already ordered the machines. They put in the order late Monday afternoon after they got out of that meeting with the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and so the machines are on the way. Mr. Lafayette also told me that there is no problem with inventory on the machines because the two companies, Election ES&F and Dominion, have geared up and manufactured more machines, anticipating the need for this by the state, which I thought was good coordination on their part. Now, what is a poll book? Let's take a look. This is a picture of a poll book at the top. The poll book is manufactured by Election Systems and Software, which handled these poll books for the city of Chicago recently, back in 2017. And the poll book is on the right in miniature there, above the election word. And over on the left, you see a printer. Now, what happens is when you come into early vote, as I understand it, you would give your name. They would look you up in the poll book, which has every registered voter in the county, and then they would print out the ballot for your town or city. It's quite an idea. And then you would vote, and the vote would be counted by one of these Plan B machines that they are acquiring. And Mr. Lafayette said he expected them to arrive in 2 weeks, and within 2 weeks, that was from yesterday, since they were ordered this week.
Now, where the printer is there, is that the Plan B machine?
No,
No.
it is not. That is the printer hooked up to the poll book. And it's quite an ingenious little operation, because should everything go according to plan and no mistakes are made in downloading the stuff into the poll book, I mean, this could work fine. And Mr. Lafayette and Mr. Culte have done yeoman-like work with the delays that were incorporated over the last couple of months. Now, he also said, once again, 50 poll books are going to be ordered, and 30 machines are voting machines are going to be ordered, and they will be the same types of machines that we're used to voting on. And now, a date to keep in mind: early voting starts on Saturday, October 26th, and Mr. Lafayette also noted that the poll book would be used would put out a report on who voted early, and that would be sent to various election districts, and they would check it so that people would not vote twice. So this seems a very simple. A fail-safe system is built into it, but they still have to execute it. And as the training will begin, hopefully, machine by machine, and they expect to hire 64 people, but Mr. Lafayette said he thinks it will probably more likely be 100 to spell people out at the various 16 locations. They're also thinking of adding another location in Amerenik Township. There is one in White Plains for anyone interested in early voting. So what do you think? This seems very ambitious. So far, so good.
You know, it's hard to really say. You know, we'll have to try it and see how it works. I don't know if you can predict in advance. I think it seems like they've figured out pretty well.
I think so too.
The only thing I was thinking about, the report who voted, I guess they don't say how they voted, but does that become public information as to who voted?
You raise an interesting question, but I'm sure they do not reveal results. On the other hand, as Mr. Lafayette pointed out, there's no way to tell whether you'd get a lot of early voters or a few. There's no way to predict how many people will vote early, but it also certainly does away with the absentee ballot problem. You know, because if you're going to be away on election day, you can simply go and vote early.
Well, somebody could be away for the whole period of time also.
That's true. You're probably still going to have the absentee ballots. However, right now, they are in crunch time, and hopefully those machines arrive in timely fashion. But quite frankly, I think the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the Public Works Committee should look at the proposal for the bonding and approve it. Toot sweet. Like, how about coming in on the weekend and doing it?
Now, another question.
Could we work on the weekends, guys? Right.
The polling places will be different for the early voting?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's something that's really got to be made clear.
You're right. In fact, people should be on the lookout for a communication from the Board of Elections explaining the whole early voting process.
Now, when you vote on election day, it doesn't, then you have to go to your own polling place.
That's right.
Okay, you can't go elsewhere.
Another excellent point, which has to be explained. Right. But everybody
well, they
in
ought
the
to put a
county
sheet. They ought to
can
put a sheet
vote early
out
at 16 places.
Yeah.
But then they have to vote in the regular election at their own place. A very good point. Moving on, there's a debate this week, and let's see the shot of the hopefuls And what did you think of the two Democratic debates? I watched them both.
I didn't watch fully the first one, and that was mostly, the first one was mostly between Sanders and
They
Elizabeth
didn't
Warren.
have a picture of Joe Biden on that whole smear of all the faces, so I had to have Joe Biden someplace.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're doing these debates really the right way. I certainly felt that they were favoring Joe Biden and giving him coverage, and they were diminishing other candidates. So I'm not sure that they're getting across what the public really feels.
Well, they never do.
Well, they've narrowed it down to what, 7 candidates now?
I think that's what they were supposed to do. Have they announced what those 7 are?
Well,
No.
my wife heard something on the radio yesterday. I didn't.
I say, well, there was nothing in the paper today, at least on the front page.
Yeah, I would think that would be definitely front page.
One would think, but be that as it may, I agree with you. I hate this debate format because it's all about the anchors, and it's all about figuring, well, we're not going to ask that many questions of these other also rans because people want to hear from Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris and or Ms. Warren, and it's but let's shame on the Democrats for including so many people, you know, that do not really have a shot. And this is what is cluttering up the debate. You would have a lot more action if you started off with the top 5.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, you know who were the top 6. Just my opinion. And come on, could we, when we interview candidates after it, let's not pick out something that the candidate said and question whether they really wanted to do that in their campaign. That's not your job. You ask, like like Anderson Cooper did with I think it was Kamala Harris, but I'm not sure. No, Elizabeth Warren. He was interviewing Elizabeth Warren on Tuesday evening, and he kept harping on the fact that Elizabeth Warren was going to eliminate corporate coverage of union benefits, health benefits. And he was asking why, instead of asking why she did that and how it would work, he said, well, aren't you afraid that's going to eliminate union support? That's a hypothetical question, and I'm sick of them. Hypothetical questions
I'll
is
tell
not
you,
news.
After listening even to the interview with Bernie Sanders, I don't think that they've really figured out how they're going to pay for this stuff. You know, they keep talking. And, you know, I think the simplest thing to do with health care at this point, I think that making some changes to the Affordable Health Care Act would help. But I think that what they could do is they could lower the age when you go on Medicare. Instead of making it 65, make it 55. And they could probably do that without too much financial disruption. And it would help an age group that really needs that kind of help. You know,
Not only that, but you limit the expenses to the 55, 56, 57, 58-year-old. Yeah. You know, which that's when your health problems start. And but it is a good suggestion. And you also had the suggestion of saying anyone under $50,000 would not pay taxes.
Yeah.
That was another intriguing, brilliant solution by Mr. Benerofe.
But nobody seems to listen.
Well, I make under $50,000. I like that idea. But I'm retired, though. But be that as it may, another thing about the debate that really got me was the fact that the disorganization, the Democrats do not have any overall messages that they've agreed on. That you saw a lot of internecine attacking, which is apprentice-like television.
Technically, the Republicans don't either.
Republicans are taking notes, and they better get the act together. In fact, I do not understand why they don't bring the candidates before these debates and thrash out a series of issues that they feel are palatable to the electorate that could be swung to a Democratic cause. They have to do that. It's not good planning, is it? Is it? I don't think so. What is a Democratic forum? Do we know? No.
Well, what is the Republican forum?
More of the same. That's the Republican platform. Not going to change. And no solutions. That's right. Status quo. Now, some things are happening in White Plains of interest, and that is that a city judge is going to be, I understand, up for approval by the Common Council on Monday after 9 persons were interviewed this Monday night in executive session, and there's apparently some very well qualified people selected and for the final stages, and we will see who they come up with. This is a 10-year appointment, and the person who is replacing Judge Hanratty, who retired, but I don't know if he's still on the bench and he's leaving when someone's appointed or what, but he is retiring. So we look forward to that on Monday night. Watch the agenda material, folks. Maybe we might learn something for a change, right? Not that you learn much from the agenda. It's just you have to sort of go through it, examining entrails. It's like the modern version of the Delphic Oracle. You never know exactly what the agenda says it's really doing. Am I not right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Now, over in Playland, on Tuesday, they launched the Dragonator. There's George Latimer cutting the ribbon, and Catherine Parker and various kids who helped select the name. The name was selected, was Dragonator, and that is a picture in the upper left-hand corner of the Dragonator being spun about. It looks like a very interesting ride, and but what was important about this was that this county is doing pretty well through mid-July in attendance. They have already got 220,279 admissions compared to 213,009 in 2017, the last great year that Playland had, and 204,663 last year, the rainy summer, when every weekend it rained. It was just a very bad weather summer. So this year we're getting terrific weather, and also the county has a number of town events and also concerts that we do not know at this point, although I asked this question at the county, and you know, it's strange they haven't gotten back to me, and I asked exactly whether the attendances at those family nights and concerts are counted in that 220,000. If they are, that's why they're up. If they're not, then they're even better off. But unfortunately, 540,000 was the total in 2017. That was the year when Standard Amusements was interested. And at this point, it's neck and neck whether or not they're going to hit that number. Because as we all know, in August things slow down, the weather deteriorates, and people are getting ready for school, kids are going back to college, and it's not a big time month from attendance. So hopefully, look, we're not being negative. Okay, aren't we? Was I negative?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And now we turn to a very sad event, and that was the death of Richard Leibson. And that is Richard in the foreground on the right. He sort of spans the era. Tell me about Richard Leibson.
Well, he was a very, very interesting guy. I knew him fairly well. And he never went to college, which I think a lot of people don't know. And I think that he was a fantastic success for somebody who didn't. And he was a very likable guy. His funeral was quite an event. I would say there was probably 500 people there. And about 25 or 30 people got up and made short, told little short stories about things that occurred with him and their lives and his life. It was definitely one of the most interesting funerals that I've ever been to. And he,
Well, news is interesting.
yes. And the other thing is, I think they are setting up a foundation at White Plains High School. We'll have more detail on this for a journalism scholarship. And he was just a great guy, and I will miss him terribly.
So the news situation in this county.
Yeah.
What I appreciated about Mr. Leibson's talent was he had a tremendous way of putting a person he wanted information from at ease.
Yeah.
Or if someone was talking to him about something that was wrong that they were complaining about, he had a great ability to listen.
Yes.
And that's where he got terrific stories, really humanized the story, and that's real talent. But he was pretty good at hard news too. He had a great rapport with officials, and he also had an ability to gain their confidence too by his same easygoing. I'd call it wouldn't be folksy, but it's sort of like I say, folksy, and
Yeah.
he's a very incoming person.
He was
Whereas
extraordinarily talented.
The vast majority of reporters are very aggressive. And of course, do you think I'm aggressive? Tell me, do you think I'm aggressive, folks? I just ask questions that need to be asked, right? But be that as it may, he was anytime you lose a great reporter, the journalism profession is bereft, because we have to have more reporters like him. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, good night.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.